Okay. Awesome. So, I'm back now with the saxophone to do a saxophone intonation video. So, in the clarinet video, we just talked about what is intonation. So, intonation is being in tune, being able to match pitch, being able to match pitch on your instrument, not be too sharp or too flat, and being able to adjust and play with others. So, if you're watching, feel free to say hello or comment any questions. So I just did the clarinet video on intonation. We're just going to do a short video on saxophone intonation here. So intonation is really important because the more in tune we are generally and the more we're able to control our intonation, we're going to be able to enjoy how we sound more and be able to sound better with others in the group if we're playing with piano or in a band or in an orchestra or something like that. Okay, so saxophone intonation. So, and my saxophone is a little bit cold, so it's probably going to be on the flat side, which will be good for teaching purposes. So what notes do we play in saxophone to tune? So same kind of like with what I talked about clarinet, really common notes are concert B flat and also concert A. So on saxophone, concert B flat is our G, right? And concert A is our F sharp. So it's really important when we're tuning to be able to play the different octaves to see how they're doing, because sometimes the higher octave can be sharp, and it's just really good to be able to tune both of those. So I'm using an app called Piano Tuner. You can also have like a physical tuner that you use. I just like this app because it's free and it's on my phone, and I have my phone pretty much all the time. So I'm going to play, I'm going to show you just how I tune. This is how I tune like before a rehearsal when I'm playing with people. So I'm going to play my lower G. Okay, so think about how that sounded to you if you're watching this video, and then I'll tell you what direction it was going. So like I said, my saxophone is a little bit cold, so that was on the flatter side. Now, as I play, it's going to continue to go sharper, right? Because the saxophone's going to warm up and putting a lot more warm air through it. Okay, so how do I adjust my intonation on saxophone? So there's really only one way that we can adjust our instrumentation on saxophone, or our intonation, like by moving the instrument around. So on clarinet, we can adjust at the barrel, and we can also adjust at the middle joints a little bit. On saxophone, the way we're going to adjust is by moving the mouthpiece either up or down. So if I was flat, I'd want to push in to make the pitch sharper, okay? No, that was better. That was green for one of those. So that is helping make my pitch sharper and more in tune in the green. And now, if I pull out, it's going to make it flatter. Right? There's a pretty big difference, too. And I just talked about how, like, in American bands and orchestras, we're typically going to be tuning to 440. That's what my tuner's set to. Let me know if you have any questions about that or if that's confusing. Because some, like, orchestras and bands, like in other countries, depending on where you are, might tune to like a higher pitch, like 442 or something like that. But the big thing is just making sure that you know how to work with the tuner and be able to adjust when you're sharp or flat. So what will really help is sometimes if you have, you might be having a difficult time moving your mouthpiece, like maybe it's stuck or you're hurting your hands. You can just use cork grease. It's pretty inexpensive, and you can just put it on the cork here. It just kind of looks like chapstick. And that'll just help make it easier to move the mouthpiece around. So some common mistakes I see when we're doing intonation on saxophone is people trying to pull out at the neck here, especially if you just started. That is, well, it is going to adjust the intonation, but it's also not going to be great because this neck and body connection here is so important for just the saxophone aligning, the saxophone being able to produce a good sound. So if you're pulling out at the neck, you're not getting that connection, your sound is just going to be off. So you don't want to adjust the intonation here. You really don't want to move this neck at all. And I'm just making sure this is screwed in nice here. So that's pretty much it, and you can't pull apart at the middle of a saxophone, and I hope you don't try. And I just have an alto saxophone today, but the intonation concept is going to be the same on all the saxes, so soprano, bari, tenor. Okay, so that was tuning. I was tuning my B flat. I might also tune my concert A. So something that we want to be aware of is, depending on what instrument we have, we might have some intonation tendencies. So typically I've noticed with students, your upper notes might tend to be a little bit sharp if you're biting, especially like maybe around the palm keys. Now those could be flat too, but typically I've noticed kind of with my more beginner students that those tend to be pretty sharp, and that's if you're biting on the mouthpiece too much. So if you're using too much pressure here, that's going to cause the pitch to just increase and be sharp and out of tune. So you want to make sure that you're not biting, and that also your throat and tongue are in the proper position. So I'm thinking when I play saxophone, I'm making sure not to close up too much as I get higher on the saxophone. Okay, so now I'm pretty in tune. So something that's also really important is you're gonna want to adjust your intonation as you go along. So if you've been playing for a while in band or whatever, or if your instrument's sitting out in the cold, the intonation's gonna adjust. So the longer you've been playing, it's gonna go sharper. And if you ever had to play in marching band or outside, the intonation's gonna be pretty flat, right? So that's something to be aware of. So you might, even if you're in tune at the beginning, you might not be in tune at the end. So that's just something to be aware of. And something else I really like to do for intonation, so I can not only see it visually on the tuner, but here orally, is practicing with drones. So I have something called, so a drone is just a sustained pitch held out over a long period of time. Your metronome might have like a little beeper that can act as a drone for different pitches. I just use something called a cello drone on YouTube. It's just a cello playing a sustained pitch that has like all the 12 different pitches. And I just find it's the least annoying sound. So I'm going to play this drone, and then I'm going to play my concert B flat scale on saxophone, which is my G. And I'm just going to try to see how each note is sounding. Now I might even go higher than the G, like maybe up to my high D. I make sure for that D that I'm not biting. If I bite, it's going to sound like this. Right? That sounds sharp and not super great. So, I can also, what I also do for intonation is sometimes I'll practice different intervals. There's different rules that go with certain intervals. So if you're playing with other people, like there's minor thirds, major thirds, perfect intervals that are all going to have a kind of different rules for how sharp or how flat they are while tuning. But the most important step, especially if you're new to intonation, is just being able to work with your tuner and being in tune with yourself. And then something I also do is I write my tendencies of intonation. Like I'll write it down somewhere, like a Word doc or just a notebook. Like I'll write how many, it's called cents, sharp or flat, so it'll be like plus 10 or minus 10. So again, the ideal goal with intonation, when you're just like trying to get in tune with your instrument, is going to be try to make things green on the tuner, and then just being aware that you're playing in a healthy way. So kind of all those things that we talked about that go into making a good tone in our previous tone videos also affect intonation. So it's a big circle of relation. So I hope that helps. So just to recap some important things is for saxophone, adjusting the intonation from the mouthpiece, not moving around the neck, not trying to twist other parts of the saxophone, practicing with the tuner, checking different intervals, and then you can also practice with a drone as well. So if you have any other questions or things you'd like me to cover regarding intonation, let me know. And thanks for watching.